Today, we're going to dig into a story that's almost 3,000 years old. It's the tragedy of Israel's very first king. And you might be thinking, what's that got to do with me? Well, what's so fascinating is that hidden inside this ancient tale is a seriously powerful and super modern lesson about focus. So yeah, that's really the big question we're tackling today. What can a fallen king's tragedy actually teach us about our own lives, about how we handle our ambitions, our setbacks, our struggles? And believe it or not, the whole thing kicks off with this really strange historical puzzle. Okay, so here's the first part of our story. And we're not even starting with the king. Nope, we're starting with a kind of inconsistency in the historical record. But once you spot it, it's like a key that unlocks the whole narrative. It shows you how stories get rewritten when leadership changes. So here's the puzzle itself. The text is super clear that Samuel was from the tribe of Ephraim. But the religious law at the time was also crystal clear. You had to be from the tribe of Levi to be a high priest. No exceptions. So how in the world did Samuel, a total outsider, end up with the top religious job in the entire nation? Something doesn't add up. And the answer, it turns out, isn't some dusty legal loophole. It's all about the power of a good story. See, whenever there's a big shift in leadership, the narrative, the story everyone tells, often gets a little rewrites. You build up the new guy by tearing down the old one. It's a pattern you see over and over and over again all throughout history. And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The story paints the old priest, Eli, as a total failure. He's old, he's blind, he's weak, and his sons are completely corrupt. But Samuel? He's portrayed as this ray of hope in a really dark time. See what's happening? By making Eli look bad, the story makes Samuel's rise to power look not just good, but necessary. It justifies everything. Okay, so keep that pattern in mind, because the exact same thing happens again, but this time the stakes are way higher. We're talking about the transition between Israel's first two kings. This is the big one, the switch from King Saul to David. And here's something you absolutely have to remember. The version of the story we have was written down by David's people, his descendants. So, of course, to make David's dynasty look legitimate, the story has to systematically tear down the guy he replaced, King Saul. And wow, the case they build against Saul is just overwhelming. The narrative says he disobeyed God's direct commands, that he got completely consumed by this paranoid jealousy of David. He literally abandoned his job as king just to hunt down this one guy. And he did some horrific things, like slaughtering 85 innocent priests. The picture they paint is of a guy who's totally erratic, unfaithful, and just completely unfit to be king. But what if we just take a step back? If we look past that official record for a second, a different picture starts to come into focus. Behind the monster, there's a man. And honestly, he's a truly pitiful person. He's a guy trapped by forces he can't control, just watching his whole world fall apart. And that feeling? I think that's something we can all relate to. And speaking of that feeling of having completely lost control, like the universe itself is working against you, that actually brings us to a much more modern story. So let's talk about Seth MacFarlane, the guy who created Family Guy. Back in the fall of 2001, he had a flight to catch from Boston to LA. And from the minute he woke up, it was just one of those days where everything that could go wrong did. I mean, just look at this chain of events. First, he wakes up late after a night out. Then, he finds out his travel agent gave him the wrong time for the flight. He thought it was 8:15. On top of that, he hits a bunch of unexpected traffic. So he finally gets to the airport, rushes to the gate, and it's closed. The flight actually left at 7:45. He missed it. He said later it felt like the entire universe was conspiring to make him miss that plane. That plane he missed? It was American Airlines Flight 11, the first plane to hit the World Trade Center on September 11th. So all those little frustrations, those unseen forces that felt like a conspiracy against him, were actually saving his life. And that just brings it all right back to Saul, doesn't it? What if he had seen all those things happening in his life? David's unstoppable rise, the way fate seemed to be turning against him. What if he saw them not as a personal threat he had to fight, but as an unseen force guiding him somewhere else? What could have happened if instead of fighting tooth and nail against what he couldn't control, he just focused on what he could? Because here's the thing. While Saul was completely obsessed with David, he was missing something else entirely. There's this almost forgotten story of incredible loyalty, a story that shows us the kind of king he could have been. the kind of man he actually was once upon a time. So, after Saul's last disastrous battle, he and his sons are killed, and their enemies, the Philistines, they take their bodies and they nail them to the city wall of Bethshan. It was meant to be the ultimate trophy, the final public humiliation of a defeated king. But then, something absolutely incredible happens. The news reaches this town, Jabesh Gilead. And when they hear what happened, the text says that all the valiant men arose and went all night. They went on a rescue mission. I mean, just stop and think about how unbelievably dangerous this was. This was not a casual stroll. We're talking a 20-kilometer march at night through the dangerous Jordan Valley, straight into the heart of enemy territory. They had to sneak into a heavily fortified city, probably fight off enemy soldiers, climb the city walls, get the bodies down, and then carry them all the way back. This was basically a suicide mission, and it was all driven by one thing: loyalty. So you have to ask, why? Why would they risk everything for a dead king who died in disgrace? Well, it's because years and years earlier, right at the beginning of his reign, when he was a different kind of man, Saul had saved their city from being wiped off the map. They never forgot it. When Saul was at his absolute lowest, they remembered him at his absolute best. And right there, that's it. That is the huge, powerful lesson from Saul's whole tragic life. It's about the wisdom of knowing when to let go and the massive price you pay when you focus on the wrong things. This really lays it all out, doesn't it? On one hand, you have everything Saul obsessed over, the stuff he could not control. David's growing popularity, the shifting tides of fate, God's big plan, whatever you want to call it. And on the other hand, you have what he completely ignored, the stuff he could control. Serving the people who depended on him, acknowledging the profound loyalty of those he'd helped, cherishing the love of his own family. And that, right there, is what we could call the wisdom of focus. It's really that simple, but it's also incredibly profound. It's the ability to tell the difference between what's in your power and what isn't, and then dedicating all your energy to the things that are. So as we wrap this up, the question really isn't about some king who lived 3,000 years ago. It's for you. It's for me. It's for right now. In your life, what are the things that deserve your focus? And what are the things, the obsessions, the old grudges, the battles you can't win, that you just need to let go of?